to the show. Danielle Mercurius. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hey, my loves, it's your girl, Danielle Mercurio, and I am so excited to be bringing to you the founder of Girls Gone Happy. Girls Gone Happy is an amazing experience. It is these delicious card decks that help you get so crystal clear on where it is that you want to be and how to go about it. Because when I met Justine a little over a year ago, she was based in Philadelphia at the time. She reached out to me, basically said she was a Leo, lover of all things cheetah. So I was like, I have to meet this person. There is literally nothing in my being that can stop me from engaging with her. So we met and we talked about all the fabulous Leo things. And we talked about our mutual journey and becoming a coach and seeing where there was a disconnect between coaching and spirituality, between getting the answers from source and knowing where to take action from there. And so when Justine shared with me Girls Gone Happy and she shared these gorgeous card decks with me, I was like, oh my gosh, you just found a way to make the universe your life coach. Essentially what these cards do is you pick a topic. So you'll hear in the episode different topics that we pull. And then with that, you get questions that coincide that topic so you can take what it is that you divinely pulled from the universe through the cards to then find your answer. Because so often with oracle cards, we'll pull a card and it will say, abundance is yours. Everything you want is happening. Now is the right time. And you'd be like, great, thanks universe. I appreciate that thought. However, now what? Do I just wait? Do I just sit here? Do I ask more questions? Do I pull another card? I'll shuffle them and then I'll pull the same card again and I'm super confused, right? It becomes a whole thing. So what I really love about Justine is she saw that. She saw that, we're not getting deep enough with our spirituality. We're not getting as far as we could when it comes to the ways that we can, communicate and co-create with the universe. And so she created an opportunity for that. And I'm just obsessed. I love it. You can check out the card decks at girlsgonehappy.com or .org. Find them on the Instagram, Girls Gone Happy, and enjoy this episode with Justine. It's a really great one because she opens me up. She gets me to go places that I wasn't anticipating that I was going to go. And it just is a huge testament to Justine, her ability as a coach and a leader as the founder of Girls Gone Happy. Enjoy, my loves. Hi, Justine. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Danielle.
I love it. I love it. This is how fiery lionesses communicate with each other. In off-tune songs.
Zooey Deschanel ditties, yeah.
So much. You so have that vibe. Do people, did you, get a lot of that when the new girl's not on anymore, is it? Did it end?
I don't know. My brother-in-law he was like, this is exactly like you. And I was like, shut up. She's so annoying. And then I watched an episode and I was like, oh, good God, what have I done?
That's me.
Definitely. And at the time I was also a school teacher who sang to her students. Yeah, it was a lot. There were a lot of, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, yes.
Okay, everyone listening, go to Justine's IG and be like, yeah, that's pretty Zoe spot on. Although, this is what I didn't think that. That thought never occurred to me ever until now. And the thought of, I used to watch New Girls, but I realized that I never got closure on it because I don't know if
I didn't either. I actually loved that show. Yeah. And then I just started to, I couldn't stand her character, but I loved everybody else. And then I don't know why, it was just like scratching an itch for too long. It was just, totally. I couldn't watch it anymore.
Yeah. There's only so far you can go with 4 characters hooking up with each other.
Yeah, exactly. But I did want to see if Schmidt got married, and
I think he did.
I feel like we could talk about this for an hour. Yeah. I was very heavy into it. Yeah. Jake Johnson has a weird, ugly, hot vibe that I never fully understood. That made me feel a certain kind of way.
Yeah, no, for sure. It brought up like he like represents a lot of the boys I had crushes on in high school.
Yes.
I'd be like, ooh, like,
Yes.
why do I have a crush on you? Like, you don't look like,
Yes.
the people in my Teeny Bop magazine, but like, there's
Yeah.
something like about you that's,
Yeah. Kind of like broken and unwashed, but
Mhm.
lovable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally unwashed and probably literally like didn't shower for like,
Yeah. No, I meant that quite literally, like
yeah,
dirty,
yeah,
physically not clean. Yeah.
right. Like the one that would like come from gym class, just like stinking up the entire room.
Like, why am I into this?
I
What's wrong
know,
with me? I
I
hate being
know.
16. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was such an interesting time. But then
Dark times.
yeah, so okay, so we're going from the new girl, which TBD wherever that may be, to what you do with Girls Gone Happy.
Yes. So
Yeah,
many girls.
I know all the girls, and then me as a girl in high school with liking all the stinky boys.
Mhm.
Oh man, I probably cried over some of them.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure
definite
I wrote.
tears over
I'm
here. Yeah.
sure. I sure I wrote my journal. I am sure. Actually, this is really interesting because. So were you? I have a question. Well, we'll talk more about Girls Gone Happy, and I shared a little bit about the premise of it and how you came up with it in the intro. However, that being said, what I love about Girls Gone Happy is that it's like an oracle deck in the sense that you can open up the cards, you can ask questions, and you can find guidance. And what I love further about Girls Gone Happy is not only do you find guidance from the cards, but you find journal prompts and ways to continue the conversation. Whereas a lot of times with oracle cards, like you'll pull a card and it will be like prosperity, and you're like, cool, I'm going to be prosperous. I feel satisfied. And then you're like, but wait, I actually am not satisfied. I need more. Like, I need to pull another card. And then you like pull another card and it's like, you know, love awaits. And you're like, cool. But like, what does that mean? Whereas like your decks, it's like you pull a card and there's a theme. Like I could do it right now. I actually took out your cards. Um,
Oh, yes, being prepared.
Avi,
Hello. Yes.
Avi. So like you can pull a topic card, and I'm in the money deck, of course, and it says freedom, and it's like, ooh, amazing, money, freedom. But then you can pull another card that has the questions, and that's where you get like the juiciness. So like, okay, everyone that's listening, you're gonna love this right now. Okay, so I pulled a topic card, and the topic card is freedom. Okay, and this is around money. So I think all of us can resonate with the notion of wanting more financial freedom, embodying financial freedom. How do we gain financial freedom, right? So that's kind of the thing. And so when we think about money, and in a regular oracle deck, not one of Justine's, you would pull that card and it'd be the prosperity one. You're like, cool, I'm abundant. But again, it's like, now what? Like, we need more. And so then the card that I pulled was the clenching card.
Ooh.
Ooh, right? And the question is, where is there tightness around money? Wow, that's something
What
that
a
you can start to explore. And even physically, right? Like I could even feel in my stomach a little like, ooh,
Mhm.
like tightness, buddy.
What a good one to pull around freedom.
I know, right? And this is the magic of your deck. And then further, the next question is, what could shift to make things flow instead of constrict? And I love this because this way you can start to have a conversation, whether it be jewelry around jewelry you want to buy, uh, but journaling, or just even just having a conversation with yourself, having a conversation with your higher power, bringing it to maybe your coach, someone that you support, and say, hey, I just pulled this card and I'd love to talk it out with you. I've done that before where I've like gone through journal prompts with a friend, and sometimes that's really satisfying. Um,
Super satisfying.
it really
So
is.
where do you feel tightness or clenching?
Oh, are you gonna like coach me on it?
No, I'm just
But
curious.
oh, am I under the radar? For me, and this is where it always is, like right around my solar plexus.
The
Yeah.
power station.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But it wasn't that tight, to be honest. It was just like a dull tightness, like enough to be like, we like to get tight there when this stuff comes up, because that's like habitual.
Do you
Go ahead.
what was your first thought when you pulled the freedom card? Because I feel like you also like we were just talking about how this past Saturday you were doing your confidence, clarity, and cash. Am I getting that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
um, Workshop. And I feel like so much of the work that you do is around like how feeling confident and optimistic and hopeful and excited and even joyful around money is what draws it in, and like that we have a relationship with money in the way that we have it with a person, and just so much interesting work around the physical, spiritual, relational pieces of money. And so I'm curious, like, I just think it's interesting that the freedom card came up for you, because I feel like that's something you work with other people so much around.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how that happens?
Yes.
The work that you do with other people is actually the work that you need yourself. Huh.
I remember someone said to me once, we teach that which we most need to learn. And I was like, God damn.
I know. It's kind of weird. And it almost like makes me be like, wait a minute. Like, am I like, huh? Like, am I legit to teach this then if I need to learn it too? But it's layered, right? Like, I feel like I've had, and everything I teach is something that I've had results from or have embodied or have gone through myself. And it's also something that I continuously am growing into. And so for me, why I think this freedom is coming up and around money and the tightness is actually not around the teachings of money and how to feel like money can support you, but more so around some of the ways that I'm redesigning my business for 2020. And yes, and I'm taking some bigger leaps of faith. I'm cutting out some things. I'm investing in ways that I haven't. And I think that's where I know I will find freedom, but there's that part of me that's starting to feel that little tightness. Like, is this a good idea? Like, why not? Like, everything's working. Like, you got your business to a really good spot and you're in flow and everything's good. So why are you changing this up? Like, why are you shaking up everything? And it's like, well, I'm shaking it up because I know that there's even more that awaits me, and I'm ready to scale and I'm ready to take it to the next level. And so I know that money represents some of that, right? The freedom to be able to create and put out what I want in the world, and the space that I need in order to do it is going to be different than ways I have operated in the past. And so that's kind of my current status quo.
Yes. You know what that made me think of as you were talking, popped into my head, something that I was thinking about for myself today, and is one of my being brave.
Yes.
Are you still there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wait, let's start over. Say that again. Yeah, just say it again. Start with what it made me think of.
Okay. Something that I just thought of when you said that is something I was sitting with earlier today myself, which is this idea of being brave. And that's a word, that's one of my, I don't have resolutions for the year. I have words, and one of my words is brave. I feel like that's something I have to remind myself of so much in my work and in running a business, even small things. Like, I sent an email today to a company that I really want to work with that I've been looking at for 2 years, and I've just been really scared to reach out for them. And I started the email and I closed it 3 times, and I was like, just be brave. Just send an email. Like, they're not going to bite, you know?
Yes, right.
But I needed to give myself this little pep talk, like, be brave, go on, send it. It's okay. And I feel like I have to kind of puff up my chest and tell myself that a couple of times a day in doing my work, which is, I don't know, it's been an interesting thing to notice. And there's something you were just talking about in terms of, reinventing what you're doing and being brave enough to change something that ain't broken. That requires bravery.
Yes, my word for this year is bold, which is very similar in a lot
That's one of my 3 words.
I love it.
Wow. Bold, bright, and brave.
Oh, the 3 B's.
The 3 B's.
Mine's BFE, bold, fun, ease.
Bold, fun, eat.
Ease. Well, one of my goals for 2020 is to eat.
I
wanted a goal that felt like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
Low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
But who knows? Context. Great.
Yep.
I like eat.
I'm focusing on curing my diabetes.
Well, I like eat. I also like ease.
Yeah.
Probably makes more sense.
Right. But it all goes under, which is why I'm happy I got this word freedom, because the overarching feel is freedom. I didn't want freedom to be a word because that actually felt too expansive as a word for the year. So I was like, okay, what words fall under and embody what freedom represents? And for me, freedom is boldness, fun, ease.
Yes. Love that.
Yes. So
What
I
good
love that we're
words.
being bold together.
Yes, me too. Well, a little birdie named you helped me figure out that was something I really needed to prioritize and to stop holding back so much.
Hmm. What is the biggest shift in realizing that you don't have to hold back so much anymore?
Hmm. That's a good question. I think um, two things come to mind when you ask that. One is we'd had a conversation a long time ago where I shared some of the core values that I had for this company, and I wasn't sure how they were going to sort of like manifest or come to fruition. And something that you said, it's not verbatim, but around like if that is the intention with which you started this work and you just keep that intention in your heart, it's going to evince itself in the work that you're doing. And so I think that was a big piece of it for me, and being more explicit about these are things that I really care about. These are values that are really important to me and important to this work. And being explicit about that, and that's been something that, I mean, 12 days into the year, but I just feel like 12 days into the year I've had so many conversations where I've had a choice of either being really clear and upfront, and sort of naming the elephant in the room or calling things as they are, or sort of saying like, here's where I stand on this, or doing what I'm more used to doing, where like I sort of make allusions to it but also just want to be polite, or like, don't know if exactly how to say the right thing perfectly, and sort of shifty, shuffly, don't just like come out and say something. So I feel like part of it's being accountable, and realizing that I always thought that being accountable kind of felt like, I did something wrong and I'm taking responsibility for it. But now I'm feeling like being accountable is actually um, feeling really good, of sort of like naming where I made a mistake, owning it, apologizing for things, noticing things, saying no to things, just sort of all I've been getting are good responses when I show up that way.
Yes.
Um, and again, for me, that requires being brave, because the I'm somebody who likes to kind of like be very diplomatic and keep the peace, and not always great at just sort of calling shit out.
Hmm.
Can I say that on this?
Oh, fuck yeah. Please.
I figured, but always good to
Be
ask.
brave and say whatever the fuck you want to say. Let's make
Thanks.
sure that this is rated MA
You got it.
for mature spiritual individuals only, and those in their likeness.
Yes.
It's true though, and I used to be that peacemaker too, and I found that in keeping the peace, I was keeping everybody in a good space and keeping myself in one that just always felt disillusioned, never enough, never really measuring to my full potential. And it's from that space of integrity and intention, that beautiful merger that happens when we're really clear on our why, and also really respectful at the same time, while brave, as you say, and bold, as we both say, that things shift and change, and there is that moment of awkwardness, but once we get through that, you get the results that you've been looking for, and oh my gosh, like that is the moment, right? It's like you have a moment of awkwardness so that you can have a moment of awe, of pleasure, of satisfaction and growth, and it just keeps going from there, and it gets easier and easier, and you start to take ownership of your personal power, while all and knowing that your personal power is an integrity because you have that why, and you have that intention, and you know that is solid, and you know that is pure, and you know it comes from a good place. And so I love seeing you embody your work and your personal power in that way.
Thank you so much. It's
Welcome.
yeah, I love the word integrity
Mhm.
also.
Yeah.
I think that's been sort of my litmus test as well. If I've been kind of naming something that I think is problematic, or just sort of being pretty frank with someone about, something that I want to see shift in work that we're doing together.
Mhm.
Um, and then I always have that moment of, oh, did I say it incorrectly? Was I rude? Was I,
Yeah.
did I make a mistake? But if I find when I reread what I've written, and I can see that it was written with integrity, and that it was, as you're saying, coming from a pure and good place, and that there's a way to be firm yet kind, and gracious without compromising one's self. And so I feel like that's a lesson I'm still trying to figure out. But if you're right, it feels very good to be putting that into practice,
Yeah.
even though it's
And
awkward a lot of the time.
it is awkward, especially when, for you and I and anyone else that's listening that's in a space where they are their brand, or they are they're tied to their business. It's easy to take things personally, but it's also easy to take things personally even if it's not tied to you, right? Like, I mean, I guess to think about it, any job I've had, it was very easy to take criticism as something that was personal, but it's really just a reflection of where the work stands and where it can improve. And so any feedback that's coming through, anything that didn't go the way that you wanted, isn't a personal reflection of you. It's just the learning curve and the growth of what it is that the work at hand is.
Totally, totally. It feels very good to get older and not take so many things personally.
Yeah, I've been noticing that too, actually. A part of me has been wondering, like, I'm like, is it the work, quote unquote, that I've been doing, like personal growth, or is it just that it's true what people say that the older you get, the less you care?
I think you also realize that people have a lot of shit going on, and it's really not about you.
No,
You
it's certainly
know,
not. No.
like, uh, yeah, everyone's just got so many things going on, and to assume that the way that they're behaving has anything to do with you is like there's an infinitesimally small chance that that's what it
Mhm.
is.
It's so true. And that, or that they're taking it home with them, or, they're spending their whole night thinking about it and obsessing over
Right.
it. It's very unlikely.
Very highly unlikely.
Yeah. And so that, I remember when I learned that, I was like, oh, nobody cares. Cool.
Right, but like in a good way.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Not in a like defeating way, but in a like freeing way. Like, oh,
Mhm.
okay,
One
cool. Yeah.
one of the best lessons that one of my aunts taught me, um, was right when I was right out of graduate school, and I was doing a job that was a little over my head, and I messed up something, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, "Just apologize and don't explain.
Mm,
Nobody cares. They just want
yeah.
you to say sorry, and they want you to fix it."
Yes. Ah,
And it was such a good lesson, because I felt like I was still in that place at age 23 of being like, "Well, you see, this is what happened because of blah, 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 blah," and like giving way too much context and way too many, just it was just too much. And it was like,
yeah.
nobody cares. Just take responsibility, apologize, fix it, move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very, very, it took me like a long time to actually fully get that.
hmm
Um, but yes.
No, it's a big one. It's a big one. We don't have to justify anything. And actually, I actually, in a weird way, lucked out. So my mom is a very no nonsense person. And so like whenever I was quote unquote in trouble, which was often, she didn't want excuses. Like she like literally, even if I tried, she would just be like, I don't care. Like she would just be like, it doesn't matter. Or she would just tell me like, you know, um, like go to your room. I don't need to
What
hear
did you
that.
what did you get in trouble for? What kind of naughty were you?
Oh, what kind of naughty was I? So, well, I think my grades weren't really the best, and so the only reason why I really got by in school, I hated homework. Like I hated homework. I never did homework. I would wait till the last minute to do things, which now I realize is just my gift of time management. I'm just smart enough to realize that things are best left to the last minute than to, waste 2 weeks on. I mean,
There you go.
you know but I actually have, that is part of my like workflow now, is the understanding that I actually like things to be kind of handled at the finish line. It doesn't always work, but neither does planning super far out either. So, I just kind of glorify what I like. And but yeah, didn't like doing homework. The only reason why I kind of got by was I was good at like reports if I had to at the end of the day, and I always seemed to do well on tests. So, but my grades were mediocre, and a lot of times I would lie about how I was doing and my grade status. I would hide my report cards. I would, but clearly they would find out that the report cards were due. It was like stuff like that, like shady stuff around not performing well in school. I also was the class clown, so I would get in trouble for telling jokes or just like being impulsive. Those were kind of the big ones.
All of the things that now serve you well. Maybe not the lying part, but
yeah, no, and I don't. Yeah, I will say, lying is something that literally, like, in my core, is one of my things that I will not do. I can't. Like, it makes me physically ill, the thought of lying. And I know that the reason why I was quote unquote a liar prior, well, I technically was a liar, was because I wasn't meeting the expectations of the world and I didn't know what to do. So I lied. It was like my people pleaser coping mechanism was to lie, to tell people what they wanted to hear so that I would be safe. And that's really why I would lie so much. And I literally did it up through my mid-20s. And it wasn't until I started to wake up and take a little bit more self-awareness and reflection into my being, I realized where the lying was coming from. And it's been a non-negotiable thing ever since. Like I can't literally tell you the last time I've lied, because I just can't.
Wow, what a big shift.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it was so easy. Like to the point where even in the beginning, I think, like, and you're a parent, like, I'm sure you can tell when, like, your child is not quite telling the truth. And there's a difference between, like, a little kid, like, kind of like,
Yes. Worst liar ever. I have a
yeah,
4-year-old.
like, you can see
Literal
it,
worst
right?
liar ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Absurd.
I got so good at it that I, like, was convincing my parents and yeah, I mean, like, they even, like, points where they would believe me. And like, I was very good at it. And it's yeah, definitely something that I needed to heal. And for me, though, the biggest way of learning how to heal it was learning where it came from, and realizing and recognizing it wasn't that I was a bad person, because that's what I used to think. I used to think I was a bad person. I thought I was evil. I thought I had no moral compass because of that. I was like, you're a pathological liar. But it was just literally me being scared and feeling different and wanting to be, like, loved.
And yes, and not having options, right? I feel like as a
Felt
teen,
trapped.
yeah, I was about to say, I feel like adolescence is so claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's things you're supposed to do, and if you don't, that are largely out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they are not happening, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
It doesn't feel like there's a lot of space or options.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to feel like the walls are closing in on you. So I can understand that being kind of what your teenage brain came up with as a solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would just buy me time. That was really,
Exactly.
what I was looking
Mm-hmm.
for. I'm like, oh, cool, I bought myself some more time.
Mm-hmm.
But however, yeah, I wasn't the kind of liar, though, that made excuses or, like, would justify. It was just kind of, and then again, when I would get in trouble, my mom would just very much be like, she would be mad and she wouldn't want to, like, I had, basically what would happen is I would come home and kind of, like, the look on her face would make me realize, like, oh, she found out, right? Like, she found
Mm-hmm.
out, and my role is to sit and listen to her speak her truth based on all of this and be silent and not say a word and then go to my room. So I kind of, that, in an interesting way, I've never been one to want to explain myself when something doesn't go wrong, because I go in, like, I was so used to going into silent mode.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
there's nothing to say in that situation in a way.
No, not really. So
Yeah.
anyway, those are all those pieces. What archetype were you as a teenager?
What archetype was I?
Yeah, or I guess, what kind of teenager were you? Were you considered to be, like, smart, class clown, dreamer, all the above?
No, none of those. So I went to a really rigorous school, and like anything below an A was an F.
Oof.
So I was getting Fs.
Yeah.
I did not thrive in that environment. I was there for 13 years and it was really not a good fit for me. And so I did very well in English. I've
Mhm.
always been a writer. Um, but otherwise I was on the struggle bus
Mm.
academically, but I was I did theater. Um, so I was like very engaged in that. I started a music magazine.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. I was feeling musician in my head. I love that you started a music
I
magazine.
started a music magazine called Phonic. And
Aw.
it was actually really cool. Like record labels were sending us CDs because we would write them letters and ask them to send us CDs. It was very cute. And it
That's
was
so
actually
cute.
pretty good. It's
I bet
pretty
it
good. It
was.
like lived on after I graduated.
That's really
I was
cool.
I yeah, so like I was sort of a theater chick.
Mhm.
Um I was friends in this kind of like in the alternative friend
Mm.
people group.
Yeah,
But then it was interesting at the end of high school. I was like bold but shy. I
I get
feel
that.
like I'm still kind of that way.
Mhm.
I can be pretty ballsy, but I have definite shy streaks.
Mhm.
But I was, to my surprise, I was the like graduation speaker of my grade, and so it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was this very surprising. Like I think only then did I realize that there was something kind of cool about me,
Mm.
um, and I think I was like a little trendy at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but I think yeah, so that was actually an amazing experience of getting to be there was a girl and a boy who got picked. So I
Uh-huh.
was the girl. That was a really validating experience at my graduation, and I got a community service award that was like for contributions to to sort of the school culture, which I was shocked at because I'd been there for 13 years and I felt like people didn't even know I existed there.
So
So
interesting.
it was really, yeah, it was it was really interesting and sort of this moment of like, wow, I thought I understood my place in this community and I don't at all. And it's literally the last day of 13 years of being here.
Right,
Cool.
that I
Great.
got that announcement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this so much, and I'm curious how you think this translates to your current life.
God, I have no idea. Um, how does this translate to my current life?
This feeling of, "Who am I in this community?" And then all of a sudden finding out, "Oh, I'm actually the keynote speaker."
um, that's a great question. You should ask questions for a living.
Okay.
um, I no, I do think that's a really great question. I think even now, in the work that I'm doing, no matter like how much I'm seeing it thriving, I do always kind of feel like I'm in the wings
Mm,
a little bit, and I don't always see myself as like a major player in the scene or in the kind of community that I'm a part of. I think I do struggle to see the impact and influence that I have. When I get feedback from other people around sort of their impressions of the work that I'm doing or how I'm showing up, I'm always shocked that A, they're even paying any attention to me, or B, that I'm like, oh, seems like I have my shit together and you like what I'm doing. Wow, I felt like I was bumbling in the dark and that nobody was even noticing that I was here.
mhm.
So, um, so yeah, that's a great question. I think definitely that feeling prevails and it always satisfies the Leo in me to
Mm,
get that feedback. I think
sure
that's something
does.
I feel like that's something I've been embracing more. Like I've never really anytime I've ever read Leo horoscopes throughout my life, I've just been like, this doesn't feel like me. So when I learned about a rising sign and moon sign and I started reading those, it made a lot more sense. But I've recently started to acknowledge the fact that there is part of me that really um, like really is energized by positive feedback, recognition. Um, and I used to see that as a bad thing. like as being insecure or needing external validation or like just being showy in some way. But now I just realize that that's part of one's personality, and there's a lot of good Leo shit that comes with it too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, to a
No,
triple Leo.
yeah, I'm like, well, you better not talk too much shit about us. Um, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Some moments I'm like, wow, am I really a sun, moon, and rising Leo? Oh yeah, I am. And
And they're like, yes.
yes, yes, I am. I mean, that's why I always say, like, I'm like, I don't need your validation, but I love it. And because there used to be a long time where I would crave validation and I didn't even love it. So because I couldn't receive it. And I think that's a
Mhm.
growth spurt right there when you have that moment of recognition of understanding that I think it's normal to always be a little humble and a little like hesitant to receive feedback, good, bad, indifferent. I think it's part of the human nature and kind of the curiosity of who are we and what does it mean to be here. However, at the same time, once you allow yourself to move beyond that and move into a space of taking ownership and knowing that the ownership of what you do also allows you the experience to receive the accolades that go with it and to receive the acknowledgement that goes with it and like embody it, not just take it and say like, oh, looks like you're doing great, like you're killing it, Justine, or I love what you're doing here, and you're like, yes, thank you, I received that. But like, are you embodying it? Like, oh shit, I am killing it out there, oh my god, like people are recognizing what it is that I do. And I think it's important for all of us, really. And so that's why I'm glad we kind of brought this up.
Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday of like people who I forget who I was speaking to, but it was somebody sort of mentioning that they get really uncomfortable sort of having like the spotlight on them.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I've just never had that problem.
Yeah. Oh
I feel
yeah.
like that's a very, very common thing though of people like, oh, I don't want to be the center of attention, or I feel really uncomfortable when all eyes are on me, or when, and I'm like, no, that feels great.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I do still find myself often sort of like in the background. I love pumping other people up. I love putting other people like front and center.
Hmm.
But I also feel like it I yeah, like
Yeah.
because I have had a lot of problems with that. Hasn't been one of them.
No, me neither. You want me on stage? Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm like I yes. So for all of my shyness, I also
Have that boldness.
part of the embracing of like that's the Leo stuff.
That's the Leo stuff. And we all have it. And,
Yes.
and, you know, it's one of those things that whenever I'm teaching about confidence, I always say too that, you know, confidence doesn't mean being a Leo. Confidence doesn't mean being the center of attention. Confidence doesn't mean owning the stage. Confidence is just being authentic. Confidence is taking ownership. You can be confident about your skills as a writer. And that some people, like there are some Instagram accounts and books I read, I have no idea who the author is, what they look like, what they sound like. I just know them for their words and and like that is having a presence. And so I think it's important for us to remember what confidence represents and redefine it as staying true to your authenticity, staying true to your gifts. And there are going to be some of us that want the stage because not everyone can have it. There's too many people. So we can have the stage, you and I, and then other people can have the pen to paper, and other people can have, you know, another sector, and we all get a turn, so to speak. But I think it's about acknowledging where you want your turn to be. And the more that you get clear on that, I think that's where the confidence can stream through and you can have a presence in your own unique way.
Absolutely. That's before I had Girls Gone Happy, I had a business before that largely was around helping people who didn't have experience in education to become facilitators and teachers in sort of non-traditional settings, whether that was working with adults or with youth. And so I was doing a lot of like teaching of teachers and people who didn't have teaching experience. And we spent so much time just doing a deep dive into their personal style, their energy, the way that they show up, their personality and gifts, and starting with that as the root system for how they were going to show up as a teacher. And now that's something that I talk about a lot with our brand ambassadors, which is you need to get really clear on what your personal energy and style and way of showing up is and work with that. Don't try to emulate somebody else's facilitation style because it's always going to seem canned. It's always going to seem stiff and hokey. It's never going to feel good to you, and it's going to come out weird to the people who are, there for your workshop. Like you don't, like you're saying, you don't have to be loud and brash and bold. You don't have to be anything other than who you are, and starting with what your unique offer is and your unique gifts and your energy, and really understanding, like, what is it like to be in the room with you? What feels good about being in your presence? And how do you use that as fodder for how you're going to show up as a leader or a facilitator or whatever it is with the work that you're doing, but especially if it's people facing, or holding space for other people or guiding them, leading them through something. I feel like the clearer you can get around that, it's so important to start with that and not try to take on somebody else's persona, which can be so hard when you're starting and you don't know yourself in that way. Or if you see someone else doing something and it's going really well and it looks awesome and you're like, okay, that's the way to do it. Let me try that. But it just always comes out funky.
I agree. I'm really glad. I mean, you said it perfectly. I love it. I agree.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to shift back to the cards for a moment. We've been talking a lot about like teenage stuff, which I love. And actually, even when you were just talking now, I'm like, what a beautiful progression, to the work that you did in high school, how that translated into the role that you played in your prior business before Girls Gone Happy and then leading up into Girls Gone Happy. And one of the thoughts I had when we were starting the show and we kind of got, on a tangent in a beautiful way was like, when I was a teenager and I was trying to figure myself out and, I was trying to please everyone and I liked the stinky boys and all the things. I didn't have a Girls Gone Happy deck. I didn't have even Oracle cards. And I can imagine myself obsessing over those kind of tools in high school. Like, I think I used to go to the New Age bookstore and I would read about astrology. That was the closest thing I had to understanding people and getting more clarity on life. But I was nervous about like tarot cards and oracle cards. Like I would once in a while I'd be in a store that had them, but like I don't know, there was like nervous energy for me around it. So I never like
Yeah.
named it. But like, did you entertain any of that when you were younger?
Ooh, good question. I was the closest that I got was I bought a book on Wicca.
Nice.
And I read like a chapter of it and it talked about trolls.
Oh.
And sort of like fairies with an
Mhm.
AE and sort of woodland entities. And I just closed the book and was like, no, not for me.
Yeah.
And so I now like have a different understanding of that theology. And there's parts of it that resonate with me, parts of it that don't. But at the time, at 15, I was like, yeah, no. And I was raised in an atheist home, with this is like a whole other thing, but I was baptized. My dad was like very devout Christian. He really used faith to get him through a very long and very difficult illness that resulted in his passing when I was 16. My mom was like, we're not Jewish, even though like our entire family is Jewish because we don't believe in God. So that was a whole other thing, which was confusing. And it turns, I always felt very drawn to Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was just because I grew up in Manhattan where like all of my friends were Jewish.
Yeah.
But it turned out my father predeceased his mother, and at her funeral, her sister outed her as Jewish, and that she had been lying her entire life to all of us for good reason, because she was a German Jew in the 30s, who had basically escaped to Switzerland. And like you were talking about before, was lying about it for so long that we feel like she kind of convinced herself that it was true. And so my dad never knew. And so at this funeral, I was like, I knew it. So I, in my early 20s, did a lot of exploring and learning and sort of coursework and community work around Judaism, I found that my inability to read or speak Hebrew really pushed me out, and then I kind of never found my way back to it in the last 10 years or so, but I've been thinking about it a lot recently. So that was a windy answer to your question, but it's something that's been a huge source of like challenge for me in my whole life. I've always been a very spiritual person, and it was really squelched out of me by I feel being in a home where religion wasn't spoken about. It was something that was like my dad's and not for us to participate in with him, and sort of the heavy-handed atheist. um, I found what I turned to was existentialism. I loved existential philosophy. I was really, 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 really into it.
Yeah. No, there's
Throughout,
some juice
like,
in there for sure.
oh my God, yeah. So like the essay "Existentialism as a Humanism" by Jean-Paul Sartre is like one of my favorite pieces of writing, and that for me took the place of religion, took the place of oracle cards, took the place of any kind of tool for making sense of the world around me. It was as close to something hopeful, spiritual,
Tapped in.
that I tapped in that I could get to. And it wasn't until I moved to Philadelphia and I had like a sort of spiritual opening in a very concentrated period of time there that sort of made me feel like I was losing my mind, but then it ended up being really great.
Yeah. That's usually
But
how it
that wasn't
goes.
until that wasn't until I was like 26 or 27. I was always like rolling my eyes at what I thought of as like stupid woo things, like smoking a cigarette and like talking shit on them. And then I became a Reiki master, and I love crystals, and like my family thought that I had a nervous breakdown, but that happens.
Yep, that's part of it too. All part
The
of the
end.
initiation. Yeah. Cool, you passed.
Yeah.
You bought the
Yay.
crystals, your family thinks you're insane, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're good.
Yeah. 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 I remember when my husband Kevin was encouraging me to take a course in coaching, and this was before it was as ubiquitous as it is now. And I was like, "What am I going to be, a fucking life coach with crystals?" And he was like, "Yes." And I was like, "You're insane." And then fast forward a year later, I was literally a life coach giving Reiki sessions with crystals all over people's heads. And I was like, yeah, you knew me better than I knew myself, and this is great. This is much better than what I was doing before.
Yeah. But how beautiful in so many ways.
Yes.
Love it. Well, I love your cards. I actually was just playing with the clarity deck also. So, well, first, okay, because you're gonna laugh at everyone's gonna laugh at what I pulled for the clarity deck. But share a little bit. So, there's the clarity deck, the money deck, grieving, and motherhood. Why did you pick those 4 tiers for the 4 different decks? Or not tiers, but niches, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I had a list of about, if I remember correctly, 11 different decks that I wanted to make. And I knew that I needed to just start with a few of them. And I was going for a walk one day, and I had this sort of like epiphany moment that the 3 that I was supposed to start with were clarity, motherhood, and loss. And I remember as I was on that walk, I was like, and I remember exactly where I was walking. It was by the ocean here in Lisbon, where I live. And my daughter was on my back. It was a really long walk. And I remember saying, like, really, those 3? I was like, yes, those 3. I was like, but what about like the love deck? No, those 3. I was like, but what about home? No, those 3. And I was like, loss? Really? Like, ugh. It was like, those 3. God damn it, those 3. So I was like, okay. So those are the 3 that I started with. It was kind of like I felt like I kind of downloaded that those were the 3 I was supposed to start with. And then I wrote the money one after that. And there are still. Oh, I will also say another one that I wrote about like 20% of and didn't move forward with at that time is called the bad thoughts deck.
Ooh.
I've never told anyone about it.
Ooh, special outing.
I'm still really into it and I still kind of want to make it happen. So
Yeah.
so the
Naughty.
bad thoughts deck is like the antithesis to affirmations decks. And
Mm.
it's like
Oh,
it's bad shit that you say to yourself, but then when you look at it on a card, it seems ridiculous.
yes, I love that.
Yeah. And then
I've
there's all
I
these different ways that you work with it to like get that gunk out.
Oh my God, because I
Um,
hate positive affirmation. Oh, that sounds terrible. I don't hate positive affirmations. I right, like that's
fuck those
I
guys.
like being a grouch. Okay.
Um,
However, they come off as cheesy to me sometimes, and especially I also look at it from the space of when I was first exploring these kind of things, and I would read positive affirmations. It definitely just was a turn off for me, and yeah.
so
So
I'm gonna be bold and brave here and say I
okay,
actually hate positive
you really
affirmations.
hate them. Okay, I dislike them. I don't hate them.
I don't okay, maybe hate's a strong word. I don't like them. Not in a grouchy way, just
No,
in a
like me over here.
you know,
Rah!
to
What do you mean you love
no,
your
but like
life today?
I just here's the thing. Like this is what you were sort of saying in the beginning of our conversation when you drew your cards and you were talking about how there's um,
Oh, right.
a
Like,
different energy with the question, right? I
yes.
just find positive affirmations for me, they feel really hollow
Yes.
and
Great word.
and
Hollow.
like they feel a bit hackneyed.
Mhm.
And also like, well, what do we do with this?
Yes.
Like, am I just supposed to say this to myself endlessly? Am I just supposed to read this? Like, what do I do with this? For me, the reason I wanted to write them as questions for our cards is I feel like a question has an energy, right?
Mhm.
It has like a bundled up little action, like a
Yeah.
coil that's going to
Yeah.
spring. There's just such a different energy to a question. It implies that there's a step to take, that there is an answer to seek, that there's a conversation that's starting. If this card is asking you a question, now you're invited to respond. What do you do with an affirmation? There's not that same kind of dialogue
No.
built in.
There's no
Um,
legs.
yeah, I like don't get them. Also, another thing I was thinking, one of our brand ambassadors who's so amazing, Marion, was just talking on one of our calls about toxic posit- toxic positivity.
Yes. Mhm.
And she's particularly working with our loss deck and doing
Mhm.
um, circles around grief and like
Mm.
sort of gatherings around letting go and grief and just processing. Um, and is just was sharing about how her unique offer, her unique brand is like having these harder conversations that sometimes people get squeamish around and feeling like she's a person who really enjoys going there
Mhm.
and who really is pushing against toxic positivity. And I remember when we were on the call, I was like, what did you just say? That phrase is amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
It
just feel like that puts a nail, it just hits the nail on the head.
it really does. Another guest that I had on later this past year, is that how you say it? Late last year? I don't know. A few months ago, whatever. Andre
Yeah.
Young. He's like, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not an inspirational speaker. He's like, I'm an action oriented speaker because I want you to see me on stage and take action because of what I said. I'm not here to just spout motivation. I mean, that's cool, but like, what does it mean? What does it mean to just be inspirational? It makes you feel good and you get warm and fuzzy, but so does a cocktail, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, so like, what's the difference? What's the difference between having a drink and feeling a little better and hearing someone say, inspirational things, feeling a little better? You still go to bed that night and yeah, you feel good, but when you wake up in the morning, you have no direction. And so what is it about self-help that can be directional? And that's why I love these cards. The first one we met and you showed these to me, I was like, oh, this is action oriented. Oh, this is directional. Oh, this aligns with the work that I do as a coach, because you and I both know as coaches, we're not going to just sit and tell someone what to do. We are going to hold space. We are going to allow them to find the path based on the questions that we ask. And that's literally what you get when you get Girls Gone Happy and the different decks that go with it.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. And it's because I saw when I was doing one on one coaching, so many people were coming to me and they just didn't feel like they could answer their own questions. And I really really believe that each of us we have the answers to our own questions. It's just a
Yes.
matter of learning how to listen to the answers, hearing your own voice, answering them, and either trusting the answer, or if you not, then learning how to be in conversation with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling like you have to outsource things to some expert or to someone who's going to tell you
Right.
that they know how to live your life better than you do or what you should be doing. No one's in your head, no one's in your life except you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like as women also we just have that hammered out of us not to trust ourselves,
Yeah.
um, and not to listen to ourselves. And I want I wanted to create something that would help us to regain that power.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is very powerful. It
Oh,
doesn't mean you're right all the time. It just means
no.
that like you are your best friend and you are your best resource, and you don't have to go to someone else to fix things for you.
I agree. I agree. And that's why I love them. I surprisingly, it was really interesting with your decks. Uh, I have three. I have the Clarity Money and the Lost deck, and the Lost deck has actually become my favorite one, which is really cool. And I didn't expect
Yay.
that. I know. I was gonna. I have a cheesy joke. I was gonna pull it for the show, but I couldn't find it. I lost it.
I'll have to get you a new one,
Yeah, no,
cornball.
it's around. It's just it was one of those things before the show. I was looking for it. I didn't see it, but she's around here somewhere. That happens a lot in
She's
my life.
lurking.
Yeah, it's around. But I pulled from the Clarity deck this round because we pulled from Money earlier, and I pulled for the topic card. I pulled Pipe Dreams, which
Hey.
hey, and then for the question, I pulled the Sex card.
Yes.
Pipe
I love when
Dreams.
people I love when
I
people
was
say
like, is my sex life just a pipe dream?
no. Read the card.
I'm going to read it. I know. That's why this is appropriate that this came up. So, how do your beliefs, feelings, and needs around sex interact with your thinking here? So, how do your beliefs, feelings, and needs around sex interact with your thinking? Actually, it does. It like sometimes I do think sex is a little bit of a pipe dream. Not so much sex, because I actually know that sex is available to me whenever I want it, but it's the sex with the piece around what I'm looking for from partnership that sometimes feels like a pipe
Mm.
to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and then the next question is, what can this teach you that will help you move forward in the ways that you seek? Well, I feel like I have to marinate on that. So what would it so essentially, what does this teach me around this notion that I have that essentially good sex with a partner is a pipe dream? Where,
Yeah.
where's where is that coming from? That kind of far-fetched notion. Mm.
Right.
And you know what it is? This is actually this is around a lot of the work. I've been actually doing a lot of work around relationships and sex, actually mutually, the past couple months. And one of the things that I had to start, or I have been realizing and identifying, is what my expectations are around partnership and sex are unconventional in a lot of ways. And I didn't want to admit that. I wanted to try to be more quote unquote conventional and traditional when it came to partnership and sex than I actually really
Mhm.
want to be. And that's a big breakthrough that I actually really haven't been talking about this much because it's been a lot more of an inward journey right now. But that's actually something that I've been, yes, focusing on myself. And so this is an interesting connection as a part of all that.
Would you mind repeating what your insight was? Because it literally cut out as you were saying that. And I was like, what evil fuckery is this from the universe? That like the juiciest, most like wonderful, fascinating insight that you're having. It's just the internet is like, just kidding.
Right. Well, it's so funny because I'm like, I haven't revealed this to the world yet. And it's
That's when
like,
it came back when you said it came back when you said that. And I was like, are you kidding me?
okay. So I love all of this. So essentially, I feel like that's when you cut out, there was a part where it was like the same thing where you were like, blah, blah, blah.
I was like, here's my deep soul reveal.
Yeah.
And
And
the
it's like,
curtain came down.
so for me, what I've been realizing through the internal work that I've been doing is that I actually don't want conventional or traditional partnership or sex. And the way that I want to continue to move forward with my sexual identity and also with partnership isn't quite in alignment to the quote unquote traditional path. And I haven't wanted to admit that. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so a lot of the things kind of for me behind the scenes is really allowing myself to be more open and curious around sex and partnership in ways that I haven't allowed myself. And that's been something that I'm opening up into. And I think that's why I was treating sex and partnership like a pipe dream, because it was kind of a pipe dream. It was a pipe dream to feel like, okay, Danielle Mercurio is just going to like find the husband that like works the steady 9 to 5 and like, I don't know, like just like is good on paper and will get along with your family. And will, like I just was trying to find that man that would like fit the role that would make my life quote unquote easier around expectations of what partnership looks like when again, and I'm still unpacking this, so I'm it's still fuzzy in some ways, and I still feel like the partnership I'm looking for will have components of that, but there also will be other components that will be a part of it that I haven't wanted to admit, and that's more like the sexual part, I think.
Yes. Good for you for unpacking that and acknowledging that, for
Oh,
sharing it too.
yeah, yeah. No, it feels good,
It
and go ahead.
yes. No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say it feels good, and it actually it just it like makes more sense. I mean, I've always been curious about sex. I love talking about it. Like my comedy is always around it. And there was a part of me that as much as I love it and am curious about it, was still denying myself it because I was like, well, if I just deny it, then I'll just get that quote unquote stable relationship and that will be good. And somehow that will, I don't know. It's weird. It's so funny once you start unpacking it, you realize like how strange your thinking is around things.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's really interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine that like if I feel like if I had been born 10 years later,
Yeah.
my entire sexual life, relationship life,
Uh-huh.
everything would be so different because I feel like now um, there's a lot more fluidity. There's a lot
Yes.
more of sort of acceptance of things that I was wanting or curious about when I was younger that it just like was not a thing.
Right. It was off
And
limits. It
it,
wasn't even talked about. You didn't even know.
yeah. And it's funny because I mean, I'm not that old. you
Right.
know?
Right.
But I feel like there's been this huge sea change, this huge shift just even in the last 10 years in terms of how we talk about sexuality, sexual identity, monogamy,
Yes.
polyamory, like so
Yes.
many things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I
so
think, oh, go ahead.
no, it's just like a really, really different landscape and a really from from over here in my heterosexual marriage, it seems like a really rich
Yeah. No,
exciting time
it is, right? I mean,
to be out there.
yeah. And I think I'm just here for it because it's like, okay, well, currently I am single and there is more conversation around all of these things. And great, why not explore it? The window's open. So,
Yes.
you know, um, yeah, and it kind of even goes back to the original word, freedom. What does
Yeah.
freedom look like in partnerships and sex? And that feels really exciting to me.
Fun, ease, and bold, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Gosh, if there were three words that I could use to characterize a delightful sex life, I think those would be three of them.
Yeah. Because you kind of need all three.
Yes, you do.
Be bold and ask for what you want. It needs to be fun. And there should be some ease,
Yes.
unless, you're into some other things, but we won't go there.
That's chapter two.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Clarity Deck, for that one. And it's
It
cool.
always,
Yeah, go
yeah, always knows what you need to be asking. I
ahead.
don't know how it works, but it does.
It really does. I mean, that's how it works. And like again, at first when I saw it, I was like pipe dreams, and I was like kind of rolled my eyes, like ha ha. And then it's like once we get to talking, and that's why it's really good. Again, you can use it however it makes the most sense for you. I mean, for me, I'm actually not a big journal person. I don't really enjoy it. I'll do it from time to time. It's usually honestly like once or twice a month I'll actually sit and journal things out. I like just sitting with it and playing in my head, listening to music and just kind of going over the questions over and over again until something connects, or talking about it with a friend or someone that, I bring on as support. And yeah, it really does help um, support your process.
I'm so glad it does. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, I feel like talking it through with someone. That's why I love using them in groups or
Mm,
with a partner. Like it's amazing what comes out just through conversation and your reaction of pulling it and being like, "Mm." I always say that. Actually, it's in the little booklets that come in the with each deck. It's like you might pull a card and sort of be like, "Meh." That's usually the sign to me that there's something there that really wants your attention. And it might not just be immediately evident. You might need to sit with it for a little bit. But those are when I've seen like the biggest aha moments when people are like, yeah, I don't get it. Or like, no, I don't have anything to say around this. And then, yeah, a couple minutes later, it's like, oh, okay. Because it's just not on the surface.
right.
Um, those are always so fun to see.
Yes. So, okay, what is the best way for individuals to purchase a deck if they want to get in on this?
Yes. So they're for sale on our website. It's girlsgonehappy.org. That's the best way to get them. You can also link through that through our Instagram, which is at Girls Gone Happy. But they're all available on our website there.
Amazing. And you post on there if you're doing any events as well. I know you have a big presence in the Philadelphia area, but you do some things outside the city also.
Yes, and that's something I'm super excited about. In 2020, so I've mentioned or made reference a couple times to this brand ambassador program that we have, which is this beautiful, diverse, thriving, wonderful community of folks who are really passionate about convening women in different ways, and they all bring unique gifts to the table, and some of them focus on hiking or meditation or full moon gatherings or journaling or um, I mentioned before grief or mom circles or so many different things, business, money magic. And they use our decks in their own workshops, and there are a lot of other things that they do as well. But they've also just become friends with one another. They collaborate. It's so it makes me so happy. It's
Yeah.
like the heart of the program brought to life, and you were instrumental in helping me to actually make it happen. So much gratitude for that. Thank you.
You're
um,
welcome.
and so now we're taking the step of expanding outside of Philadelphia, so that's one super
Yes.
exciting thing for anyone who's listening who feels like, I'm someone who loves bringing women together, or I'm already doing that in my work, and I would love to be part of a community of other badass ladies doing that, and learn how to sort of use these tools in that work. So I'm so excited for that. We're going to be expanding outside of Philadelphia. We're actively accepting applications for folks who are outside of Philly, and I cannot wait to see where that takes us over the next couple of months and over this year.
Yeah. Oh, I see huge growth in that way for literally the whole year. I just feel like this year is about the expansion. I see you being established in more and more cities. Oh, great. We love
Yeah.
this. So if
Yay.
you're feeling the call, if you already have the Girls Gone Happy deck and that's why you're listening and you've been loving it and you would bring it to your friends, why not just take it to the next level? And let me tell you too, Justine is the type of leader and manager that makes this fun, easy. She's not here to take advantage or like it's not one of it's just it's light, it's dedicated, it's devotional and expansive. So if you love the decks already or you're curious about them, I'd say next step, purchase a deck, see how you feel about it, share it with some of your friends, partners, family, and then if it feels like, what, I do want to make more of an impact, or I do see myself hosting circles and groups, take it to the next level. Brand ambassador is a great way to do that.
Thank you. I'm gonna
Awesome.
just hire you to come along with me all the time.
Well, I love promoting your things, so
Thanks,
which
girl.
is part of it. So amazing. This has been such a pleasure to talk to you in this way and just have you share some of your beautiful insights and moments of vulnerability, and to have the opportunity for me to even share some of the things that have been kind of going on inside of me that the cards outed, which I love. It's just been a really great time with you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here, and for I loved hearing what the cards brought up for you, and I'm glad that we got to talk about our weird teenage selves and like atheism and sex. All good
So
things.
good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. We're like, I feel like it's teens gone happy.
That's like that's yeah, chapter 2.
Chapter 2, teens gone wild. Oh no, wait, we can't do that.
No, that is not chapter 2.
That's not chapter 2. Teens gone bold.
I like bold, brave, bright, fun, and full of ease.
Love it. All the things. Well, thank you so much, Justine. I really adore you, truly.
Thank you so much, Danielle. This has been so much fun. And yeah.
Yay, that's a wrap. So tell me, did you love this episode? While I may not need your validation, I certainly love it. So go ahead and make sure that you are following or subscribed or have reviewed this podcast in whatever app you listen to. And let's support the show by supporting each other. Share this out with a friend or someone that you know would just love to have a juicy listen. I adore you. You're amazing. Thank you.